and cut canyons into the landscape as they go. In contrast, low-altitude rivers are more likely to meander through flat zones, bringing their water into contact with more potential farmland. As an added bonus, when a braided river overflows its banks with the spring floods, it leaves behind a nice, thick layer of nutrient-rich sediment. Silt is a great poo enhancer. Being in a desert region keeps those pesky foraging neighbors at bay. No sane hunter-gatherer is going to get to the edge of a desert, gaze into the endless mass of heat ripples, and dreamily opine, "I bet there are some awesome rabbits and rutabagas that-a-way." Especially in an era when loose sandals were the most durable footwear available. Rivers also hold a couple of less obvious advantages that are just as critical. The first of them is transport. Moving stuff around isn't all that easy. Assuming you have access to an asphalt or concrete road, the sort of road that didn't even exist until the early 20th century, it takes about 12 times as much energy to move things on land as compared to water. In the early years of the first millennia BCE, when a top-notch road was gravel, that energy disconnect was more likely in the neighborhood of 100 to 1. We didn't even get cobblestones until the 3rd century BCE. Having a slow-moving desert river running through the hearts of our first homelands enabled humans to relocate everything from where it was in surplus to where it was in demand. Labor distribution enabled early humans to exploit more fields and so increase plantings and food supplies, and to do so in places that didn't need to be within a short walk of where we lived. Such advantages were often the difference between spectacular success, that is, everybody doesn't starve, and equally spectacular failure, everyone does starve. There was also the not even remotely insignificant issue of security. Soldier distribution via the waterways enabled us to fend off those neighbors dumb enough to cross our desert lawns. This transport issue all by itself separated the early agriculturalists from everyone else. More lands under more secure production meant more food produced, which meant larger and more stable populations, which meant more lands under more secure production, and so on. We were no longer wandering tribes. We were established communities. The second issue rivers solve is one of digestion. Just because something is edible does not mean that it is edible right off the plant. Things like raw wheat can certainly be chewed, but they tend to be hard on every part of the digestive system, contributing to bloody mouths, bloody stomachs, and bloody poo. Not good things in any age. Raw grains can be boiled to make a gruel that is disgusting in taste, appearance, and texture, but boiling both wrecks the grain's nutrient profile and anyway requires substantial fuel. Boiling might work as a supplementary food stream for a tribe that wanders from place to place and often has a supply of fresh firewood and only a few mouths to feed. But it is a complete non-starter in a terminal desert valley. Deserts never have many trees in the first place. Where deserts and trees overlap would of course be along rivers, putting fuel sourcing in direct competition with farmlands. Anywho, the point is that successful riverine agriculture generates big local populations. Boiling food for a lot of people, for a community, every day simply isn't feasible in a world before coal or electricity. Bottom line, clearing land, digging irrigation trenches, planting seed, tending crops, and harvesting and threshing grain are the easy parts of early agriculture. The really brutal work is getting 2 pieces of rock and grinding your harvest, a few grains at a time, into a coarse powder that can then be prepared into easily digestible porridge, without needing heat. Or, if you lived with a foodie, baked into bread. Our only available power was muscle power, both humans and our critters, and the sad physics of the grinding process required so much labor that it kept humanity in a technological rut. Rivers helped us flush this problem. Water wheels enabled us to transfer a bit of a river's kinetic energy to a milling apparatus. So long as the water flowed, the wheel would turn, one big rock would grind against another, and we just needed to dump our grain into the grinding bowl. A bit later, presto, flour. Water wheels were the original labor saver. At first, nearly all that savings was simply folded back into the back-breaking work of irrigated agriculture, bringing more land under cultivation, enabling larger and more reliable yields. But with the farm-to-table process becoming somewhat less labor-intensive, we started generating food surpluses for the first time. That too freed up a bit of labor, and we had inadvertently come up with something for them to do: manage the food surpluses. Bam! Now we have pottery and numbers. Now we need some way to store our urns and keep track of the math. Bam! Now we have basic engineering and writing. Now we need a way to distribute our stored food. Bam! Roads. All our stuff needed to be kept, managed, and guarded in a centralized location, while all our skills needed to be passed on to future generations. Bam! Urbanization and education. Yes, this is all very Civilization by Sid Meier. Dude did his research. At each stage, we pulled a bit of labor out of agriculture and into new industries that managed, leveraged, or improved the very agriculture the labor had originally come from. The steadily increasing levels of labor specialization and urbanization first gave us towns, then city-states, then kingdoms, and eventually empires. Sedentary agriculture may have given us more calories, while deserts provided better security, but it took the power of rivers to put us on the road to civilization. During these early millennia, there wasn't much traffic. River-driven agricultural systems could, and did, pop up all along the world's many rivers, but cultures enjoying that crunchy desert coating were rare birds. Our first good choices for sedentary agriculture-based civilizations were the lower Tigris, Euphrates, and Nile, the mid-Indus, today's Pakistan, and to a lesser degree, the upper Yellow, that's today's north-central China. And that's about it. Cultures may have been able to carve out niches or kingdoms or even empires for themselves along the Missouri or Seine or Yangtze or Ganges or Kwanzaa, but none of them would have enough insulation from the neighbors to persevere. Other groups, whether civilized or barbarous, would wear those eco-cultures down with unrelenting competition. Even the biggest and most badass of all those eco-empires, the Romans, only survived for 5 centuries in the dog-eat-dog world of early history. In contrast, Mesopotamia and Egypt both lasted multiple millennia. The real kicker is that the next technological change didn't make human cultures more durable by insulating them, but instead less durable by ratcheting up the competition.